Yeah, we have an environmental group.
All right. Damien, are we all ready over there? Excellent. Okay, with that, I will call to order the Thursday, May 26, 2022 meeting of the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Commission. We'll start with roll call.
All right, Kathleen Taylor. I think she's here.
I'm here.
on Zoom. All right, Kate Nelson,
Here.
Kyle West,
Here.
Larry Chesney,
Here.
Mark Johnson,
Here.
Peter Gower,
Here.
Serge Vilicek, absent for now, Scott Carey, and Shelley Reed.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. With that, I will ask everybody to stand for the salute to the flag, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Chesney to lead us this evening.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. So I'm looking for a motion for approval.
Commissioner Chesney, move to approve the agenda.
Commissioner Reed, second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is public comment. As always, I'll start to ask the clerk to run us through both the online process and then see if we have anybody listed for that.
All right, that sounds good. So this is for folks who want to leave public comment and they're joining via Zoom. So I will share my screen real quick to go over that process. 1 second here. Okay, so if you are joining the Zoom meeting and want to leave public comment digitally, you just go to teamrpa.org and then you click this big, red rectangle right here to click to access a digital public comment card. And then it will take you here. You'll need to provide your name, your email, the agenda item you want to speak on. If you're going to do via video, phone, and then provide your phone number just in case you get disconnected, or if you're joining by phone, we know who you are. And then once you fill all this out, it will take you to the landing page that will give you the Zoom credentials. And if you want to speak on another item, you have to go back through and fill this out again, just like you would have to do in person as well. And that's about it. Pretty simple.
Okay. Thank you, Damien. And with that,
Welcome.
do we have anybody on the Zoom call for public comment?
There's none? No?
Okay, anyone in the audience wishing to make public comment under general public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close that and come back to the commission for item number 5, which is the approval of the minutes from the March 24th Regional Planning Commission meeting.
Commissioner Gower, move to approve those minutes.
Okay, I have a motion for approval. Do I have a second?
Commissioner West.
You already had yours, Commissioner Chesney. I'll let Commissioner West have that one. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Commissioner, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Chair Johnson, I won't be voting on them. I wasn't in attendance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Okay. With that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Okay. Next, we'll move on to the business of the day. Item number 6A. Director Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. Today we have item 6A. It's a public hearing, a regional plan conformance review for the City of Reno Master Plan Amendment and a project of regional significance for the Peavine Employment Center. We have policy analyst Nate Kusha to take us through this item.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. As Jeremy just mentioned, Nate Kusha with TMRPA for the record. So this item is a conformance review for the Peavine Employment Center Master Plan Amendment and project of regional significance. So, quick overview. This is a City of Reno Master Plan land use change from large lot residential and public quasi-public to mixed employment and parks, greenways, and open space land uses. Additionally, this project is a project of regional significance for having the effect on the region of increasing employment by not less than 938 employees. Staff has determined that both the Master Plan Amendment and PRS for this project do conform with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. So with that, the subject site is generally located to the southeast of the intersections of Red Rock Road and Trail Drive. You kind of see that on the maps there. So this proposal does include roughly 44 acres that are currently in the unincorporated Washoe County jurisdiction as high-density rural, or HDR, which is the equivalent to the City of Reno large lot neighborhood land use. An annexation request has been processed through the City of Reno, and that approval is pending approval here tonight. And that will be then under City of Reno's jurisdiction as the large lot neighborhood land use. While the proposed land use designation is mixed employment, the underlying zoning will actually be specific plan district, or SPD, and the project is anticipated to primarily be industrial in nature. So the mixed employment land use is more restrictive in standards and requirements than industrial or industrial commercial. And so the SPD zoning allows the mixed employment land use to be opened up for some uses, such as light industrial uses, which are not typically allowed in a mixed employment use through the City of Reno. According to the City of Reno staff, they liked this approach more to loosening the restrictive land use rather than tightening a less restrictive land use, such as industrial or industrial commercial. So with all of that in mind, we have kind of given this review and done the analysis under the perception, my words here, that it will be primarily industrial in nature. So also, as mentioned, this is considered a PRS for employees. Per our calculations, we're estimating roughly 2,106 employees for this project. So with that, moving into our review criteria. So our first criteria there is population growth. So the proposed change in land uses, as mentioned, will result in a mixed employment with some open space land uses. This will remove existing residential, resulting in a loss of housing capacity. Given our population modeling work, we've identified that the TMSA currently has more than enough projecting housing capacity to meet the 20-year demand. Therefore, we have found that this is in line with the population growth policies of the regional plan. So moving on to regional form, or RF policies. This subject site is located in Tier 2 of the TMSA, and per the regional plan, development in Tier 2 is generally less densely developed at suburban levels with a variety of residential and non-residential uses. Per TMRP's calculations, we currently have roughly 3,081 acres of vacant industrial land inside the TMSA. That amounts to about 3% of the total vacant area within the TMSA that is currently designated as an industrial land use. Of that 3%, the Stead Airport area is kind of a large chunk of that. It's typically less desirable because that is land that is for lease and not to be owned. The proposed change from the large lot residential to industrial will increase the limited amount of industrial land within the TMSA, to some degree backfilling some of that land that was lost with the Stonegate PUD approval, where roughly 1,000 acres were converted from industrial master plan land use to a residential use. Additionally, while there are existing residences that surround the kind of subject site, we have found that this use is compatible within Tier 2 due to the proximity to US 395, specifically the Red Rock Road interchange is adjacent to it, as well as to other nearby existing industrial land uses. We'll kind of get to some maps in a second, but just for an overview, over the last 20 years, much of the area nearby has actually developed as industrial, south of the US 395 in the area, and areas to the north of 395 have been primarily residential in nature. The significant increase in residential has not really been observed south of 395. Additionally, generally, the North Valleys area has is predominantly residential land use, with greater than 20,000 dwelling units actually entitled currently. The non-residential nature of the proposed amendment would help provide North Valleys area with more of a jobs housing balance, and also possibly increase some of the amenities available to residents of the North Valleys. There will be actually a small portion of the site, a maximum of 57,000 acres, will be designated as kind of the commercial gateway, and so some of that will provide amenities to the residents in the North Valleys. So with all of that in mind, we'll bring up some maps here. So this is the total built land in the area of the subject site here. In the purple, you see industrial land, and the yellow is residential in nature with some, the red, limited amount of red there is commercial. So as you can see, there's quite a bit of industrial and residential in the area. Most of the industrial is south 395, most of the residential is north. If we look at the last 20 years alone, primarily south of 395 has been industrial in nature, and most of the residential built in the last 20 years is north, as you can see here. Moving on to public facilities and services. So a will serve letter has been issued by TUMWA for the site, and they have mentioned that water can be provided and that the project will be annexed into the TUMWA service area. The site would sewer to the Reno Stead Water Reclamation Facility, which is currently undergoing an expansion, as anticipated to provide adequate service in the future. So currently, the reservoir facility has a total treatment capacity of 2 million gallons per day, or MGD, and is almost meeting that total capacity with what is currently allotted. The facility, as mentioned, is undergoing that expansion, which will bring the total treatment capacity to about 4 million gallons per day. In addition, effluent disposal, we mentioned in the staff report, there was kind of some opportunities there. We were unsure. Some new information has come to light, rather, that we've gathered, that on April 27th, there was a presentation to the Reno City Council regarding the Advanced Purified Water Facility at American Flat. So there's an interlocal in place between Reno and TUMWA for design and implementation of this project for effluent disposal from the Rasworth expansion, and this project is in the design phase currently. Additionally, we did do some calculations for sewer generation, and it did come out that the industrial uses that are contemplated with this proposal are actually much lower than a residential development of similar size in the area. It would produce a greater amount of sewer burden. Moving on to traffic. So a preliminary traffic study was provided, indicates the majority of the traffic impacts will be borne by the US 395 south and east of Red Rock Road. Improvements to US 395 from Stead to Red Rock Road are identified in the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan and the 2031 to 2050 timeframe, which will support this traffic increase. The table on this slide shows TMRPA's traffic calculations for different scenarios for this site. So as you can see, the current land uses per our calculations would generate an average daily trips, or ADT, of around 762. The proposed land uses with the warehousing Institute of Transportation Engineers Handbook use of warehousing, which the project has contemplated as probably the use that will be most matched there, would generate about 5,488 ADT. We also did what we call the light industrial scenario. So given the mixed employment land use that is in place, if we use a light industrial ITE land use, the traffic generation actually jumps to closer to 12,000 ADT. Now, having said that, the SPD handbook for the area has limited the ADT to 6,000 overall. So if that 6,000 were anticipated to, if they were anticipated to go past that 6,000 ADT, then they would have to go to the city of Reno to amend the SPD handbook, and if they were to exceed the 6,250 number that our PRS resolution hits, they would subsequently need to come back to this body for a conformance review for a project of regional significance for traffic as well. So then just one last scenario, just to get a kind of comparable thing there. We did a residential scenario of this built-out residential with an SF3, which is 3 units per acre land use. It would come out to a similar ADT as you see with that warehousing use that is kind of anticipated there. Additionally, after discussions with the City of Reno staff and the original applicant's representative, they will be adding language to the SPD handbook stating that with each building permit application, an accompanying ADT estimate will be provided in order to track the total cumulative ADT to make sure we're not going above that 6,000 or subsequently the 6,250 PRS number. Moving on to natural resources. So as you can see on the map overhead, a portion of the subject site does overlap with our development constraints area, or DCA, for slopes greater than 30%. Any development in this area will be subject to the City of Reno's policies regarding DCA, which were found in conformance with the 2019 regional plan. These DCA areas primarily consist of two drainage ways that do exist on the project site. They have been designated open space to kind of protect and preserve them in their natural state as much as possible, and any disturbance to these drainage ways as part of any future development will require a special use permit that we'll need to review from the City of Reno. Additionally, the parcel directly south of the subject site that you can see in Tier 2 still there is private property. However, the property south of that one that you see as our DCA layer there is owned by the U.S. Forest Service, and it is close proximity to the existing recreational trail system on Peavine Mountain. Regional Plan Policy NR9, Parks and Open Space Connectivity does encourage a collaborative approach to the creation of a network of parks, bikeways, greenbelts, recreation trails, multipurpose corridors, and public facilities. Currently, there is no official access to the surrounding U.S. Forest Service land through the subject site. However, TMRPA does encourage the applicant to consider using the drainage ways and proposed open space therein to provide for future connections to this area. Currently, these trails on Peavine Mountain are accessed via Peavine Road, which is a little bit southeast of the project and is not part of the project and will remain in place. Finally, as the property south of the subject site is currently unbuilt, there are wildland-urban interface considerations. City of Reno Master Plan Policy 6.2C does address WUI, and additionally, the proposed industrial development is anticipated to assume less risk than a residential development would due to the industrial nature of buildings being typically more concrete rather than wood, and neither people nor animals living on these sites. Finally, for regional coordination, we found no other applicable regional coordination policies beyond our conformance review findings, which is this policy you see here. So, with that, there's two motions overhead, one for the master plan amendment and one for the project of regional significance, and myself and City of Reno staff are available for any questions.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate that. Okay, I will ask at this point if we have any public comment for this item.
We received none. And someone did join via Zoom, and I think it's Sarah Chavilicek, but I don't know for sure because it's just a part of the phone number.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Jeremy, maybe check your phone. We sent you the last 4 digits or 3 digits. Maybe you know if that's her number or not.
And I will ask if there are any disclosures from any of the board members, commission members.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner West?
I want to disclose that on May 20th, 2022, I met with Jessica Sfraza, Garrett Gordon, Lindy Deller, and Stacy Huggins via Zoom, who were serving as representatives of the proposed property developers, Panattoni Development. These individuals presented the background regarding this proposed master plan amendment and the Peavine Employment Center project.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any additional disclosures?
Yes, I would
Commissioner
also
Reed.
like to disclose the same that I had met with Jessica Safraza. I don't think I met with the whole group, but that I did meet with them, and they did discuss the plans for the project.
Thank you. Commissioner Gower?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I spoke briefly via phone with Ms. Ferraza as well.
As chair, I haven't since it came to this, but prior to when it came to City of Reno, I had the same conversations with the applicant and the applicant's representative. Okay. And anyone in the audience wishing to make public comment? Okay. With that, I will bring it back to the commission for questions. Want to get us started? Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not sure if my mic's work. There it is. Yeah, Nate, I was wondering if you might be able to walk me through it again in terms of public facilities. Is there enough sewer capacity and roadway capacity on 395 to serve the proposed project?
Yes, so for sewer capacity, as I mentioned, currently, I would say there's not enough sewer capacity, but that the reservoir facility is undergoing an expansion currently that will be able to then serve the project. Additionally, any development on the site will be required to put in a pipe up Red Rock Road, I believe, to the other side of 395, but that will be on the developer to pay for and put it in place. And as far as effluent disposal, as I mentioned, there's the project that is under the design phase now, which is called the Advanced Purified Water Facility at American Flat. And as far as traffic, I do believe there is capacity as improvements on 395 are identified in the RTP, especially since they have capped themselves through the SPD handbook at 6,000 ADT currently.
Okay, thank you for that clarification and follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chair. Just on the roadway side of things, so the fact that it's in the RTP and it's called out for I think it's like the 2031 to 2050 timeframe, because it's in the plan, we have a plan for it to meet that capacity need.
Correct. Our policy calls for, if there's not currently capacity, that there are plans for capacity within a 10-year time frame. And because the minimum time frame on that is 2031, that's within 10 years, and so that satisfies our policy requirements.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, additional questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Gower.
and I'm hoping for my questions, maybe Damien, you could put up the presentation with the map of the surrounding land uses? Oh, I guess Nate, you're controlling.
Yeah, I think Nate's on it.
1 second. Maybe. Okay. Which one are you looking for? One of these ones?
Yep,
Okay.
perfect.
So this is the 20-year, and this is the total built.
Yeah, so that one's good. That's the
Yep.
total built?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm looking at this map and I'm looking at Regional Form Policy 11, which talks about compatibility factors, addressing land use compatibility. And in your presentation, you reference compatibility with nearby land uses. How does regional define nearby?
Yeah, so it's kind of vague, I will say, but I think given what we've been seeing trending here, as you can see, the parcel directly south of the subject site is identified as residential. That is because there is one house built on that site. So there are some existing residences in close proximity to the site, you're correct, but generally in the area south of US 395, what we would call, I would kind of call this, the kind of neck up to North Valleys in general, as primarily industrial south of 395. That's kind of how we found compatibility there. Given the fact that, this will be kind of industrial in nature, truck traffic won't necessarily have to go through a bunch of neighborhoods to get to the subject site, as it would if something to the north were to go industrial. You're most likely going through neighborhoods. So from our perspective at the regional level, this looked compatible.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, additional questions? Anyone on, I can't see Commissioner Taylor or Commissioner Chvilicek, but I'm not hearing anything from either of them, so. Okay, there's no questions, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I could continue into discussion, that would be great. And I know the map went away again,
Yeah,
but if
back
we could
up.
put the map back up again.
Just wanted to make sure we could see everyone on the Zoom.
Can't see Commissioner Taylor when the map's up.
Haven't been able to split screen that for us there yet. There's like two TVs.
So, for me, when I look at this map, it sort of reminds me of one of those images, right? Where there's one image, but there's, like, you can see two different things within it. And for me, when I look at this map, I see what you're talking about, Nate, in terms of the industrial kind of to the south of 395 and the residential to the north. But what I also see is a split roughly about where that 395 symbol is on the freeway, on the highway, at the end of North Virginia Street, where it almost intersects with 395, and then to the subject site to the west. I see a split there as well, where there's a fairly clear distinction between industrial and residential. And for me, that's why I asked how you define nearby and how you're looking at regional form, because on the other side of that, image, I'm seeing that split where residential appears to be kind of the predominant land use over there, and a change to industrial would be incompatible. And Mr. Chairman, I don't really have any other comments other than to point that out. And to relate it back to the finding, that makes it difficult for me when I look at this map to make that finding, although I do appreciate all of the information that staff has provided in terms of kind of this, overall compatibility. And it's almost like a scale issue. And if you're looking at it, at a 50,000 foot level, it might be compatible, but if you zoom in, not quite to a local level, we're still looking at a fairly regional map. There are some compatibility considerations here. So I appreciate the opportunity to provide those comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Gower. Commissioners, additional discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Commissioner Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know all the neighbors were notified. Were there any comments from any of the neighbors in opposition or support of this project?
We at Regional have not received anything, no.
That might be a good question for City of Reno.
Good evening, Brooke Oswald. I'm Associate Planner with the City of Reno. So we did receive comments on this in opposition. They also held a neighborhood meeting. In that neighborhood meeting, they talked about, because of that more granular approach of the specific planning district, they were able to create some buffers and some walls and some other considerations of that to help with that compatibility there. But the overall number of comments was actually very limited for a size of scale of a project like this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Additional comments? Commissioner Carey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll jump in on the comment train here. I kind of agree with Commissioner Gower, looking at this at face value in terms of compatibility and at the small scale. And looking through the meeting minutes when this went to the City of Reno Planning Commission, I could see how going from large lot residential to industrial or mixed employment is kind of a big leap. I have a little concern about the overall impact of this project that it'll have on regional roadways. I very much appreciate the 6,000 foot or 6,000 ADT max that's in this handbook. And I know that there are improvements called for, and I know that the RTP is a very long process, and so I hope that some of those improvements can be made sooner rather than later. I'm sure folks driving on 395 would agree with that. But from a regional form and regional plan perspective, I think I can support staff's recommendation of approval, and I believe that I can make the proposed finding in conformance with policy RC9. I think how I see it, it's never easy to look at a land use change from residential to industrial, but in this case, that's a specific policy that's been made by the City of Reno. And, we're looking at it, it's our role tonight to look at it from a regional plan perspective and how this would impact our goals and policies of the regional plan. This site has been designated for Tier 2 growth, and the proposed master land use changes are in compliance with that growth tier that we've assigned to it. And I tend to agree with staff's analysis on, the proposed employment uses that, and to try to help address that housing to jobs imbalance that we have in the North Valleys. It's a little concerning to hear some of the numbers about, how much housing we have out there in comparison. We have a similar issue in Sparks, in our North Valleys. But I think from an employment use perspective, this can help hopefully to address that imbalance, and it meets overall the regional plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. I think just jumping in on, I guess, the train, as it were. I do appreciate the comments from Commissioner Gower. I think they do echo some of the questions that came before us originally. And Nate, thank you for the answer with respect to the way that we look at nearby areas. And it's an interesting question for me from a regional standpoint, and Commissioner Carey, I appreciate your perspective on that, where we are looking at it perhaps not so much at a granular level, where at the initial level and that I think there's a lot more discussion about that. But I do I think sort of share some of the concerns that Commissioner Gower pointed out in terms of what. There's a south to north break, but I think there's also an east to west break that starts to occur, and that this, may or may not be something that we would be looking at as far as that goes. So I think from a, regional, from all of the other issues that you brought up, I completely appreciate and agree with where staff's at. I think it's just that vague question of what exactly is the nearby properties. So I do struggle with that particular aspect of it, but I do appreciate the discussion. So if there's no additional discussion, Sarah, is Sarah on there? Oh, there's Sarah. And she has her hand up. Sarah.
I just landed in Reno. So thank you very much for it. I also want to echo the comments that I've heard. Since being a member of the Citizens Advisory Board and going through this for probably over 20 years, when the old North Virginia corridor was at one point a transit-oriented development, which was supposed to be housing. And that has gone all by the wayside. And my fellow commissioners, if you haven't driven North Virginia in a long time, you really should. I am deeply disappointed that we're looking at industrial, and I too do not see that this is consistent with form and pattern. And it's just encroachment on open space and access to an area that is cherished by many. And I just think that the demarcation between the existing development and this proposed development is enough to say that this is doesn't follow that form and pattern. And so I can't find finding in this.
Thank you, Sarah. Commissioner Filicek, before I guess if there's any more comments, if there's no comments, we do have, and I guess now you can put the slideshow back up again. We have two motions before us this evening. And I believe we need to take them in order. And as it says, there's some requirements for findings and voting for that. So we have the master plan amendment that we would be looking for a motion first. So commissioners, I will look for a motion on the master plan amendment.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Commissioner Reed, the floor is yours.
I move to find the Peavine Employment Center amendment to the City of Reno Master Plan in conformance with the 2019 Truckee Meadows Regional Plan based on the findings listed in the staff report.
Commissioner Taylor, I can second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Clerk, can we have a roll call vote on that, please?
Certainly can. Kathleen Taylor,
Yes?
Kate Nelson,
Yes.
Kyle West,
Yes.
Larry Chesney,
No.
Mark Johnson,
No.
Peter Gower,
No.
Sarah Chavilicek,
No.
Scott Carey.
Yes.
All right, I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 4 nos.
Did you count my vote?
Oh, sorry. Shell, you made the motion. Shell, my apologies. Commissioner Reed.
Yes.
Okay, so I believe in the case of a master plan amendment, we need 2/3. I'm looking at legal for this one.
Thank you. Jessica Prunty for the record, Mr. Chair. Yes, we need a 2/3 vote of the entire body, so that is 6. And so the motion does not pass because we did not get a 2/3 majority vote. There is an interesting procedure for master plan amendments where this body defines an initial finding of nonconformance. There is a process for an objection to be filed, and then it comes back to this body for reconsideration and their final decision. Depending upon the applicant's desire, we could table the PRS motion at this time. That is a simple majority. Obviously, the PRS cannot move forward without the master plan amendment, and allow time for the applicant to make their objection and come back to this board. But that would be incumbent if they wanted to wait on the PRS vote or not.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I believe we have the applicant in chambers. I guess I would pose the issue would be, talk to city, the issue would be whether we want to postpone, or do we have the option to move forward with this, or is it?
You can move forward on the PRS at this time. It requires a simple majority. But obviously, that's going to be contingent upon the MPA moving forward.
Okay.
So that's, I would like to have the applicant weigh in on whether or not they would consent to that continuance of the PRS.
Okay, well, I'll start with City of Reno Representative, Brooklyn.
Good evening, Brooklyn Oswald, Associate Planner with City of Reno once again. Yes, we would consent to that motion.
Okay, so
So we would need a formal
commissioners,
motion to continue.
yeah, so we would
the
need a
PRS.
formal motion to continue, and it's not a date certain or anything, it's just, is it?
We do need a date certain. I'm not sure how quickly the objection can be filed, but potentially we could be back at the next regularly scheduled RPC meeting on the objection and the PRS at that time.
Yeah, and I think I would, a date certain is a little tough at this point in time just because of the governing bodies and things that I have to go back to and schedule, so.
All right, well, with the applicant's consent, we can leave that open-ended.
Okay. All right, so what I'm hearing from the applicant is that we would be looking for a motion for an open-ended continuance for the consideration of the project of regional significance. Did I say that correctly? It's a first for tonight. Okay, so commissioners, with that in mind, the other option obviously is to move forward with a vote this evening. So I will turn it over to the commission as to whatever motion we want to make and run through, if that made sense. Commissioner Gower.
So, Mr. Chairman, thank you. A question for legal. So with a scenario where the master plan amendment conformance failed, the PRS could pass, what happens at that point?
Well, then we have a project that has been found in conformance that cannot move forward until we have a master plan amendment change. From a procedural perspective, I think it's cleaner for these both to come back at the same time, and the body can make its determination on the reconsideration of the master plan amendment and the PRS at that time. And if neither pass, then we have a clean path to the regional governing board for the applicant to make an appeal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay. So I am looking for a motion either way at this point. We have legal recommendation for, to push this forward to, and, but we also have the opportunity to hear it tonight.
Okay, Mr. Chair, since I made the original motion, I'll attempt to make another motion. I move to continue the Peavine Employment Center amendment to the City of Reno master plan to a date undetermined at this time, with that work? Legal, I don't know, are you not?
I believe you're trying to continue the second item,
Continue the second item?
Commissioner
Oh,
Reed, the project of regional significance conformance item.
Thank you. So I move to continue the Peavine Employment Center project of regional significance of conformance to a future date that is undetermined at this time. Do I have a nod?
Does that work as a motion? Okay.
Perfect.
All right. We have a motion for continuance. Looking for a second on that.
Commissioner West, I second that motion.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. I will turn it, I guess any further discussion before I ask for? Okay. Mr. Clerk, can you get a roll call vote on that, please?
Of course. Kathleen Taylor,
Yes?
Kate Nelson,
Yes.
Kyle West,
Yes.
Larry Chesney,
Yes.
Mark Johnson,
Yes.
Peter Gower,
Yes.
Sarah Chavilicek,
Yes.
Scott Carey,
Yes.
and not going to forget you this time, Shelley Reed.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. So maybe I'll check with Director Smith. So we will, I guess, move on in our agenda, and staff will keep us up to date, working with City of Reno on this project coming back to us.
Yes, Mr. Chair, absolutely. We'll fire out the action letter for today's action, and then following that, it'll be open for the objection, and then we can, if that comes through from the City of Reno, then we'll bring it back for reconsideration.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, with that, we will move on in our agenda to item 7, members and directors reports. As always, because Jeremy's sitting next to me, I'm going to move it to anybody else. Do we have any members reports for the meeting this evening? Commissioner Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a follow-up to my comments at the last meeting, when we were talking about tribal consultation and outreach concerning the natural resources plan, I wanted to update my fellow commissioners that Director Smith and I will be presenting to the Pyramid Lake Tribal Council next Friday. This is about the natural resources plan, inviting them to be a part of the planning effort and hopefully to get their input moving forward. We're hoping to make a similar presentation to the Tribal Council for the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, but I just wanted to relay that information to you. And I think it's important that we take the additional step of going to the Tribal Council and providing them government-to-government consultation, and hopefully have meaningful consultation and engagement, not only during this planning process, but also in the implementation of the plan. So just wanted to thank staff for their support on that, and that's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Carey. Any additional members' reports? Okay, Director Smith, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Jeremy Smith for the record. So I was going to talk about that PLPT presentation, but that's okay. Thank you, Commissioner Carey. We had an NR event, Natural Resource Gathering at the Bartley Ranch Last Chance Pavilion, and some of you were there. Thank you very much for coming by. It was for the Natural Resources Plan, and we got actually more participation from the public than we probably anticipated. We got some feedback on priorities around topics in our different categories, and we also got some map feedback around sort of areas in the Truckee Meadows where folks thought they loved a particular aspect of our natural resources or were concerned. And so we're compiling that. For those of you that didn't make it to this one, don't forget, we have hopefully an even bigger event coming in September 24th at Rancho San Rafael, where we'll be outdoors again. And by then, we'll also have, I think, more progress. We had a really, I think, very nice meeting yesterday. The Physical Resources Category Subcommittee came together. We talked about topics. We talked about kind of what we were trying to achieve and how to break up these topics, what makes sense. So we're making progress on the subcommittee portion of that. And those of you that we've reached out to and kind of been assigned subcommittees, you'll see those doodle polls for a meeting coming really soon. So stay tuned for that. We're making progress. This kind of companion effort is the PIP, the Public Infrastructure Plan. And that one has been staggered, lagging a bit in terms of starting, but we've really kicked that off now in earnest. We have been able to work with planning staff at the 3 jurisdictions to identify the public works and engineering folks that would be participating in the effort with us. And so we're in the process of setting 3 meetings one with each jurisdiction, to kind of go through what we're trying to achieve with the PIP. And then we anticipate that we'd be able to bring back to our July meeting of this body an update on the public infrastructure plan and probably do some work on scoping that project too, so we can then take that to the governing board at their August meeting. At that same time, we'll be able to bring you the 2021 Truckee Meadows annual report, and that'll be then taken to the governing board as well in their August meeting. And then the other big effort we're working on right now is the consensus forecast. I've mentioned it a few times. We've gotten that data together. Roughly 98,500 people over the next 20 years is what the projections are showing when you average them together. So we have to go through that process of taking that number to the Northern Nevada Water Planning Commission. Then they would recommend, if they agree, then to the Western Regional Water Commission that that population can be supported by the Identified Sustainable Water Resources. Once we get through that, it'll come back to this body for final adoption of that consensus forecast. That'll probably be at our August meeting. And then we'll take that new consensus forecast, we'll put it, as soon as you adopt it, we'll put it on the website. It'll be available for everyone. But now we've built that right into the plan itself. So in October, when we do our annual regional plan kind of housekeeping update, we'll be sure to include that new consensus forecast as Appendix 3. I think it's Appendix 3. So that's all happening, and we're moving forward. We're getting stuff done. Our next meeting is going to be June 23rd in this room or on Zoom. And with that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Smith. Legal counsel report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jessica Prenti for the record. Nothing to report tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for your help on the item this evening. Appreciate that. Item number 8, Commissioner's request for future agenda items. See none? I actually looked up at the screen to see if there were hands raised this time. I'm learning. Item number 9, public comment. Mr. Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We have none.
Any written correspondence?
There is none.
Okay. Item number 11, I'm just going to turn over to Commissioner Chesney.
Sarah just sent me a text and said to tell you guys that she's on the phone.
Okay. Excellent.
Oh, yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Sorry.
No problem. I know. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Enjoy your Memorial Day weekend.